So what happens when the choice that defined you is no longer the hardest one you have to make? Sometimes the first decision, the big one, the obvious one, really is only the beginning. The harder question comes later when you've already chosen who you want to be, but the world keeps challenging what that actually means. And Star Wars has always explored that next step. It's not just choosing, but continuing and refining and growing. And in The Mandalorian Season 2, Din Djarin isn't deciding whether Grogu matters anymore. That question has already been answered. Now the question is deeper. It's what does it actually mean to love him and to lead him and even to let him go? And so as we move closer to The Mandalorian and Grogu this May, this season becomes the bridge, not just from isolation to connection, but from connection to transformation. Welcome to Tatooine Sons of Star Wars podcast. We believe pop culture is modern mythology, that there is a story. It is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why we are on our own hero's journey, leading to the release of The Mandalorian and Grogu on May 22nd. In this episode, we're continuing our conversation about Din Djarin's continued evolution in The Mandalorian Season 2. Of course, I'm joined by Samuel the Hutt and BB Nate. Before we start that discussion, please take a moment to like and subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of our discussions that, again, we're going to go a lot more deeper than canon Easter eggs and spoilers and rumors and crazy theories sure to go wrong. What we want to do is take a look back at The Mandalorian and see the deeper myth that is being explored.
This is Tatooine Sons.
All right, so who had the best comeback in season 2 of The Mandalorian? Was it Ahsoka? Was it Bo-Katan? Boba Fett? Who was it?
If we go by bias, it's Ahsoka.
Luke?
It's Ahsoka for sure, because it led to more Rebels connections. So definitely
It led
Ahsoka.
to Rebels Season 5.
Right, so that's all I care about.
I mean, I want to selfishly say Boba Fett, but it was Luke.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you feel like Luke's comeback was bigger than
It was just cool.
Boba Fett or anybody else?
Well, I mean, Boba Fett coming back is okay. That was big, right? Him being back is big. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, like in terms of, I don't know, making an entrance, I don't know. Luke's was really cool, and like that. I don't admit that lightly because I'm a Boba Fett guy.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
And Boba Fett's like when he gets the armor in that. I don't remember which episode that is. It's got to be like
6 or 7.
Something like that. I mean, it was really cool when he comes back with all that. But I don't know, man. Luke cutting through all those dark troopers. It doesn't get old. Doesn't get old.
Nate, looking back now, I know when we watched that episode the first time and that hooded figure shows up in the end of the final episode in the X-Wing, he's wielding a green lightsaber, cutting down all the dark troopers like Sam said. You were hoping for Ezra Bridger.
I was hoping for Ezra. Yes, very much so.
And we didn't, obviously.
And I was
Ezra
disappointed.
But now we have Ezra Bridger.
Yes.
All right. Looking back, are you satisfied with Luke being there based on the way that we got Ezra in the new?
I'm happy with Luke. I'm also happy that it's like even more set in stone that Ezra's more powerful. Just
what
in the Force. Let's just be honest here.
Where's that coming from?
Ezra was able to do crazy stuff in Ahsoka with the Force, not relying at all on a lightsaber. Nothing. Literally just using the Force. Stuff that I don't believe Luke could do.
You're going to make some people very upset.
Oh, I've had that hot take for so long.
Ryan Airy of Screen Crush will forever refuse to come on our show after what you just said.
That's fair.
He thinks Ezra Bridger is the worst character in all of Star Wars history.
Well, he needs to rewatch
garbage
Rebels.
take. That's definitely not true.
All right, so if you had to pick one crew to be a part of from season 2, would you pick Bo-Katan's squad of Mandalorians, or would you pick Boba and Fennec? I'll start with you, BB.
The Bo-Katan's jetpacks,
Really?
cool armor, jetpacks. Yeah, I'm chill with that.
It's the worst take. Boba Fett. You get to be on the Slave One. Well, sorry.
Slave
Was
One.
it? What do they call it now?
It's
It's
Boba
the Spitfire,
Fett's-
whatever.
Spitfire.
It is.
Yeah, they
shit.
had to like redo that. It's the Slave One. Everyone knows it's Slave One. It's one of the coolest ships in Star Wars. And
So now we're strictly basing off what
also,
we do because
Boba Fett's
cool ship.
there, right? And like you know, maybe I get some armor too. You never know.
He's a criminal.
So's Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan's got no shortage of Mandalorian
She stole
armor.
an Imperial cruiser, which the Empire's bad, yeah, but still.
That was a pretty cool scene.
It was cool.
All right. So season 2 of The Mandalorian explores what happens after the defining choice is made. With this, you've got Din Djarin moving beyond simply protecting Grogu into understanding what it truly means to guide him in this season. What it means to belong in a larger world, what it means to let go of someone that you are now fully invested in trying to protect. It also reveals that identity is not solidified in that one decision that he made in season 1. It's constantly being reshaped through tension and relationship and sacrifice and all of those different types of things. Season 1, we have Din Djarin asking the question, who will you choose to be? Right? That's a question that they asked Din. In this season 2 begins with that question already answered to a large extent. We have Din. He's already made that decision. He's chosen Grogu. He's chosen that connection, and he's found family that we talked about in the last episode over isolation with this. And now that choice has settled into something quieter, something a little bit heavier with that. Identity doesn't stop forming after that single defining moment. It continues to evolve under pressure. And we see this in the way that Din really kind of reinforces that commitment to keeping that helmet on. And he's holding tightly to all the rules of the Children of the Watch, even more so in this season, even as his actions are actually drifting away from those things. There's a real tension throughout that, because he's just who he's decided to be is not always matching up with who he's actually becoming in this season. We'll look at that with this. Let me ask you this: how do you feel like Din's commitment to Grogu changes the way he approaches every mission in this season?
Well, he's definitely more cautious and everything, I feel like. I think he realizes that if something happens to him, there may not be someone to, maybe not take care of Grogu, but his mission is to get Grogu to his kind, right? So I'm sure he thinks that if something happens to him, well, who's going to get Grogu to where he needs to go? So he's more careful and everything.
Yeah, I do agree. It is. He's just more careful at this point with how he approaches every mission. This whole season is just a road trip movie, but every situation he finds himself in, he does approach it cautiously. Mm-hmm.
How does his continued adherence to the helmet rule show that some parts of him haven't changed, or why do you feel like he's so seems to be dialed in on those things in this season?
I think he wants some security of the past of what he was comfortable with, but I also think that he's trying to hold on to things he knew and learning that he may not need to or may not be able to anymore. I mean, we see that later on in the season of how he handles it. So I think it's just trying to have that comfort of the past, but learning that he may have to let go of that. It's a big conversation. It's a big point of contention between him and Bo-Katan throughout the season. Mm-hmm. So,
well, and even Bill Burr's character. I'm forgetting
Max.
No, I don't think it's Max.
I can't remember what his character is either. With it,
but anyway, yeah. There's the one episode where they're breaking into that Imperial
the Believer,
thing, and Bill Burr is giving him flack about it the whole time until the very end, when Bill Burr's character is like, "I didn't see your face," even though he did. Right? He was very respectful of it. So it's kind of it mirrors what happens with Bo-Katan in the 3rd season, I think. Right? She kind of comes to understand.
Yeah, we're seeing it from the other side of the world.
Right.
Also on that. Does Din's continued doubling down of the creed and living that out, does that reveal strength to his commitment, or does that reveal sort of insecurity in stepping beyond it on that? What do you feel like that does for him?
Well, I mean, that's a tough thing to talk about or to consider. I mean, it'd be similar to asking someone to give up their religion or certain religious beliefs, right? That's not an easy thing to do. And it's not for one person or even really an outsider to really say what's right or not. And all the people around Din Djarin are, who aren't in the covert or aren't a part of it, are like saying, this is stupid. Why are you doing this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Right. But he isn't so quick to fold on that. And I think that shows a sign of strength in a way.
Yeah. And then
but he's also not.
Yeah. Bo-Katan's all on him because at the end of the season, he gets the Darksaber and she's like, I can't take it. It's yours. You're the rightful owner.
Right. It's
but
a
I don't
hypocrisy.
think she does that from a perspective of mocking. I think
No, I don't think so either.
Because she's failed.
I agree with that, but I'm saying it's more of like not a hypocritical thing, but it at that point it is. She's like, well, why don't you take off the helmet? Like, if you're so committed to it, like what's the whole point? And then he wins the Darksaber and he's like, here, I don't care about this. He's like, can't take it. Sorry.
Right. Well, that's actually a very good connection. I hadn't made that.
Why do you feel like Din's identity at this stage is actually, and maybe you don't, maybe you disagree, but I kind of feel like it's more fragile at this point.
I think,
do you think that? Do you agree or do you disagree, and why?
Yeah. Fragile, or maybe just in a tumultuous state. Like, I think everything in his world at this point has been shaken up. And so he's having to learn what it means to be himself in this. And then for the first time, he meets actual Mandalorians that aren't in his covert, right? This is a huge moment for him. And then all of a sudden they take their helmet off and they are living by a completely different set of rules when he thought all Mandalorians were the same, right? So not only is he having to redefine what it means to be Din Djarin, he's having to question what it means to be a Mandalorian now, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like he's kind of in a transition period. It's like he's being reborn at this point. He's kind of a child again, trying to learn how to be different, how to be himself in a way where he doesn't have the safety net of a covert behind him. It's just him and Grogu against the galaxy, it feels like. So he's having to relearn all this. So I do think that he's a little more fragile there.
Yeah. In the previous episode, Sam, you were talking about how a lot of this is reminds you of like cult-like behavior with this. And maybe not so much.
It's a strong word.
It is, but I understand where you're coming from, right? It's this really narrow religious bubble that he's been in, and it's a protective bubble, right? And I mean, you and I were talking recently as I was describing the way I view a lot of the stuff that happens with the Mandalorian. Not as much in season 2, but specifically season 3, when you start getting larger groups of Mandalorians from other experiences. That reminds me of what happens with the Jewish people, with the diaspora, the scattering that's happened over the millennia.
It's like ancient
after they lost their homeland, and they got scattered to the nations, and how different sects within Judaism created different levels of rules that were not just designed to be religious rules for religious purposes, but they were designed to be religious rules that helped create identity to preserve that group as a people group, as an identity, right? It reminds me of Benjamin Disraeli, who was a British politician who once said that more than Jews kept the Sabbath kept Jews. Meaning that like that Sabbath, that day, that weekly element of having to keep the Sabbath preserved Jewish identity, even though they were scattered to the nations. And I think that's kind of what's going on with the Children of the Watch in this. That's as much of the reason why they are so religiously connected to that. But when Din starts experiencing people outside of that, and he sees this broader world that are Mandalorian with it, do you think that shakes his belief in what it means to be a Mandalorian, or does it expand it?
I would say it expands because, you know, as we see later on, right, even the armorer changes her opinions on stuff, right, and comes to the conclusion that Mandalorians are stronger together. Insert Planet of the Apes quote here, right, Nate? But you know, they're stronger together, and so while they may have differences on what's the best way to go about that, they're all going for the same goal, right? And neither as later in the series, neither group is trying to convert the other really to their side of things. They both kind of come to a mutual understanding of the other's perspective, right? So I think that's an interesting development we see happening, and I think Mando Din Djarin comes to a similar conclusion.
Okay, so you know, going kind of continuing with that thought, season 2, the real big moment for Din Djarin that starts to turn everything on its head isn't really danger until later on in the season. Really, it's the end when the danger kicks in. It's a change in perspective with this. This is what you're seeing when he meets Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
With that, it isn't just kind of a new ally entering the story, and it's obviously a really cool moment for Clone Wars fans and Rebels fans because we're getting to see a live action version of her. But what that really represents is a collision of those worldviews within the Mandalorian subculture. For the first time, you talked about this, Sam. Din sees these Mandalorians. They are absolutely confident. They are absolutely capable, but they're completely unbound by the rules that have defined him his entire life. And what makes that moment so powerful is that Bo-Katan isn't presented in this moment as being wrong,
Right.
with this. She's not presented as a bad guy. She's not presented as a villain in this. She's not even presented as misguided. She's just very different,
Right.
from Mando with it, which forces Din and all of us watching who had absorbed season 1 as being this is the way the Mandalorians are, to now we're seeing something very different. And it forces us to sort of sit in some discomfort of a bigger truth that is what we thought was absolute might not be. It may only be a portion of a perspective on this. And this is where this season begins to stretch beyond season 1. It's not really asking, will Din Djarin change? It's asking how much of what he believes as part of the creed is actually going to hold with this. Why do you think, Nathan, why do you think Bo-Katan's version of Mandalorian identity creates so much tension for Din when he meets her?
Because it's different. It's so different than what he's learned. And she also comes from a place where she feels like she has authority over Din in some ways, because she's like, well, I've been in this. Family, yeah. I've been in this for longer than you. I know more than you. And so he's battling with, I don't know who this person is, yet she seems to feel like she owns me, like knows that she's more than me. Yeah, has the authority. And so for anybody that would be difficult to take in. And then let alone, he already abandoned a lot of what he knew in the first season, comes to this, finds out that what he knows is apparently not what anybody knows is
What was holding steady for
yeah,
him is
it's
no
just
longer
it's
steady.
just shaken. It's a cracked foundation. So it's very difficult for him. And I think that Bo-Katan didn't handle any of it well, but it's just how she
Well,
is.
Bo-Katan's broken
Yeah, very much so.
in this. Why is it, Sam, why is it so unsettling for Din to realize that his creed or his way isn't the only way? This is the way isn't the only way with that.
Yeah, I mean, you've grown up your whole life being told there's one way you got to go. This is what everybody does, and stick with it, right? And then, he enters the quote unquote real world, right, and sees that not everything's so cut and dry. And I think had it been any other Mandalorian, it probably wouldn't have had as much weight for Din Djarin as if it was Bo-Katan, right? She was royalty. She was a ruler of
But he
Mandalore.
doesn't even recognize her as royalty. He doesn't know her.
He
who she
doesn't,
is.
but we
do.
Right, but she's claiming that, right?
Okay.
And there is that history. She's blood. She's Mandalorian blood. Din Djarin's just a foundling, right? Which in the culture is considered equal, but I think the fact of her station, right, her history, her past, makes her position have more weight, or at least more not even validity. It's just Din Djarin can't brush it off as easily, I'd say, as if it were just anyone else.
What is this? What is that moment in that episode? And really, I mean, the whole episode is built off of this. What does that say about the danger of confusing tradition with truth?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you answer first, or unless you want me to.
You're more than welcome to.
I mean, there's always been this, especially in religious circles, but it can be in any circle, right? It's just like, this is the way we've always done things, and let's not change it up, right? I mean, you start a job somewhere, right, new, and you're like, yeah, we do it this way. May not be the most efficient, but that's the way we've always done it. And then you can be like, well, maybe we should do it this way, and it makes more sense, right? That's a thing that always is something you're going to encounter in the real world. I mean, traditions start for a reason, right? They're there usually for a good reason. And sometimes you want traditions. Not all of them are bad, but I think sometimes they can end up blinding you to further possibilities. It's the problem that happened with the Jedi, right? I mean, they were so stuck in their own little bubble, their own little traditions, that they didn't see what was really going on in the larger picture, right? And I think season 2 and season 3 especially really accentuate how the covert's way worked for a time and worked for people, but it may not always be sustainable.
Nathan, why does encountering what we see in this, which is really a kind of a correct but different approach or worldview,
Right.
why is that sometimes more challenging than facing a direct enemy?
A different worldview than a direct enemy.
A correct but different worldview. So Din and the Children of the Watch, very rigid approach towards things.
Right.
Bo and the rest of these Mandalorian exiles are just as Mandalorian,
Right.
but they have a different worldview, a different approach towards things. Why is that sometimes more dangerous, more difficult, more challenging to face than a direct enemy?
Well, I think it's a challenge of your ideals. It's a challenge of how he grew up. It's a challenge of, it feels like he's encountering these things as a child almost at this point. It's everything he's known is now being taken different. It's not the same as what he was taught. And yet they still seem to be living the same type of code, or at least the same type of life or worldview, but in a different way. And so it can be difficult to encounter that fully and correctly.
Any thoughts on that, Sam?
I mean, it's the question of an internal versus an external struggle, really. I mean, you face an actual enemy, right? That's an external struggle, and that's its own type of challenge. But you encounter a worldview or a point of view that's different from your own and causes you to question things. Well, now that's a battle you're fighting inside yourself, these questions that you have to answer for yourself. So I don't even know if it's necessarily more challenging. It's just a completely different battlefield that you have to fight on.
Well, with the Children of the Watch and Din's perspective on it, it struggles because it claims to be the only way. Right? I mean, this is the way. That's what's drilled into his head his entire life. That's what's drilled into us as viewers in season 1. This is the way. This is the way. This is the way. And then in season 2, we're faced with this isn't the only way. Why is that so unsettling for someone that has been told this is the way and that's the only way when they start to experience those other things?
Well, I mean, it's I mean, how do I phrase this here? It causes you to question everything that you were ever taught. If you're being told this is the way, this is the way, this is the way, and then all of a sudden this isn't the only way. Well, now what else were they telling me that's not the way, right? So it's a question of, well, was that ever the way to begin with? Is that even a way anymore? It pulls the rug out from your belief system when you encounter something that is true, but by merely existing already undermines what you believe.
So there's a difference between choosing someone and then allowing that choice to redefine everything else, which is what happens with Mando and Grogu, specifically in this. In season 1, Din chose Grogu. In season 2, that choice begins to reshape everything, his entire moral framework, the way he views everything with this. And it really comes to a head in that episode that you were talking about with Miggs Mayfield. That's the name Mayfield.
That's right.
In my head there. In The Believer with that. Because it's not just a tense infiltration of this Imperial base with it. It's a quiet unraveling for Din within this. The helmet has to come off in that episode. But what really shifts within him is something a lot deeper, because Din is understanding a different view of loyalty. Loyalty to Grogu, loyalty to the mission, loyalty to this found family, over loyalty to the creed.
I think that's kind of the point I made in the last episode. It's almost a redefinition of what the creed really is about.
Yeah, I mean, the loyalty to a religious system, because that's the religious system, right? That's clean.
It's easy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's structured. It's predictable with this. But then when loyalty has to be coming to a person, right? And that's, it's funny when you think about Jesus's big battles in the Gospels really comes down to that versus, the religious system. Because the religious system this is the way, right? It really is. And then Jesus is like, well,
is it?
But if that way is meaning the Good Samaritan, you're going to walk past a dying man because your religious system says you can't touch him because you'll be rendered unclean. Then is that really the way?
Right. It's the intent behind the meaning, right? And I think that's what Din Djarin ultimately finds out. Yeah. I mean, I think largely the biggest episode for that is the one with Miggs Mayfield.
Yeah, so it's definitely like he's having to make the choice of, do I follow this creed that I pretty much have not abandoned, but removed myself from, and I'm already struggling with by removing my helmet in front of these people to save Grogu, or do I just stay in it? And eventually decides, for Grogu's sake, just swallow his pride and get it to it.
Yeah, well, it's not just swallow the pride. It's basically abandon everything. Right? Because if he takes off that helmet, he knows what the ramifications of that means. But by taking off that helmet, taking off the helmet is the only way he can survive this, which means he's going to get the information he needs to get to help find where Grogu is.
Right.
So he can save Grogu on this. How does that moment show in this season show growth rather than just kind of repetition? We have to take off his helmet again in this season. How does this showing him growing?
It's a conscious choice to put aside your past to grow for the future. He's actively choosing what I've learned, what I've done at this point doesn't matter anymore. I'm changing as a person and I need to commit myself to this change. And it's different from, he's of course removing his helmet in front of people and not in front of a droid.
Well, he refused to do it in the end of season 1, right? He was willing to die rather than remove his helmet in front of people. And IG-11 gives him the out.
Right. And
But
this one, it's like,
different. Yeah.
this one's like, okay, I need to do this because Grogu's gone. Like, it's a tough situation. And so he just ends up committing to that. And it definitely shows growth of his character for sure.
Does this show a compromise of integrity for Din Djarin, or actually a deepening of that integrity because of why he chooses to take off his helmet in that episode?
Yeah, again, I think it's him understanding the intent behind everything the creed stands for, right? Sure, the removing the helmet thing is for anonymity and to protect the covert as a whole, things like that. But ultimately, he realizes one of the things that the covert and the creed have fought so hard for is to protect everyone in it, including foundlings. And Grogu's a foundling at this point. And so, in a way, it's kind of, the ends justify the means sort of thing. But he's like, it's a sacrifice that he's willing to make for the greater good, right? He pays for the cause, where he has to go through and baptize himself in the waters of Mandalore again in season 3. He obviously doesn't know that's even an option yet, and he doesn't care because he's focused on, if he's not in the covert anymore, that's fine as long as Grogu's safe. So
it reminds me so much of the idea of the greatest commandment in the New Testament, right? Where that's rooted in the idea in Judaism that there are commandments that contradict, right? The commandment to love your neighbor as yourself, the commandment to keep the Sabbath, while there's also the commandment to care for your neighbor's ox if he finds him. Well, if you find your neighbor's ox in a ditch on the Sabbath, one of those commandments is about to be violated.
Right.
Which one? And so you prioritize. And what it feels to me like Din doesn't understand that he's doing is he's prioritizing the creed's commitment to caring for foundlings over the creed's responsibility or requirement to keep that helmet with it, which is a really interesting thing. If season 1 is about gaining something, season 2 is about losing it. With this, every step forward in this journey feels inevitable throughout the entire season. It's building towards that. We get to Tython, and Grogu reaches out through the Force, and there's this quiet shift in the story. The mission is no longer just about reuniting Grogu with other Force users, his kind, right? It's about this transition. And Din begins to understand that Grogu's path may not include him anymore. And yet he keeps going at this point. And that's what makes Din's growth so powerful. It's not driven by the hope of keeping Grogu. In fact, when he goes and he loses him on Tython, and then we see him doing everything to get him back, it's not so they can stay reunited. It's so he can complete the mission of passing him on It's about doing what's best for him, even if that's going to result in separation, which is what he knows will happen. And so as we look kind of ahead into the Mandalorian and the Grogu film, that tension is still there. And we hear that in the trailers, where Din's talking about, you're going to outlive me with this. Letting go is never clean in these things. It's always hard to do. How do you feel like Din continuing with this mission in this season to bring the Grogu to the Jedi is an act of love rather than abandonment?
He's actively trying to do what is best for Grogu because he knows that he doesn't have the resources, knowledge, or anything to handle how to care for him correctly, raise him, teach him, all of that. He doesn't believe that he's the right one for those situations. Fair enough. I mean, this baby can do so much, so more than Din could ever imagine doing. So he's trying to find a way for him to be with the people that can lead him to the correct way, the correct path. Yeah,
it's not dissimilar to a parent letting their kid go off to college. I mean, no offense, I don't think your mom could have really taught me engineering, right? I couldn't have gotten an engineering degree, right? You understood that you have to let the people who know that sort of thing train me, right? So it's no different. It's hard, of course, but the knowledge in this case of Mando knowing that this will ultimately be better for Grogu outweighs the pangs of letting him go.
Yeah, and I mean, as a parent, it's hard being the parent of a child. It's indescribably harder being the parent of an adult because there's 100% loss of control on this. And it's not a control from I want to control my child. It's I want to protect. I want to guide them. I want to make sure that they have the best of everything in their life. And now I have absolutely no ability to make that happen. Right. And so it's rough. Why is, how do you feel like Din's or Grogu reaching out through the Force on Tython? How do you feel like that changes Din's understanding of his role for Grogu? When he places him on that rock and sees him now truly connecting in the Force, and there's something, he always knew something was different about Grogu. Now he sees this and he's like, this is
crazy.
This is wild. How do you think that changes the way Din views his role with Grogu?
I don't know if it changes it.
Okay.
I think this whole season he understands that he's just a tool to protect and get him to where he needs to be. This is just further confirmation that he's on the right track. Din is doing what he needs to do. Din got him to the place to be able to connect to who he needs to be with. He thought that Ahsoka would be a good option. Ahsoka lets him know, go here. So he goes there and lets Grogu do his thing. And like you said before, when Grogu's taken and Din is trying to get him back, it's not out of a place of I need him to be with me. It's out of a place of responsibility to get him to where he needs to be. I don't know if it changes how he views his role and more than anything. I think it's just a confirmation that he's doing what he needs to be doing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think there's really anything, a crazy development there. Maybe he understands that he really truly is a part of, Grogu is really truly is a part of something bigger. But I do ultimately think it's just more of a signpost to say, hey, you're on the right track.
So, Din is spending this entire season learning to release control with this, while we have that contrast again in Gideon, who's obsessed with gaining it,
right?
Getting more control. That contrast really defines the emotional core of the conflict between them. Gideon doesn't just want power. he wants ownership of something that was never meant to be owned, the Force. With this, he wants that identity, that destiny, with all of that. And so through Grogu's blood, through the Dark Troopers, through all of that calculated manipulation that he does, he attempts to engineer strength and power with this, but it's hollow. It's empty with this, and Star Wars constantly reminds us of this, that what is manufactured cannot replace what is formed through connection, right? It reminds me a lot of what Leia says to Tarkin on the Death Star, like the harder you try to, the more you try to grasp, the more systems slip out of
your fingers.
Of your fingers. How does Moff Gideon's plan in this season seem to reveal itself as being different than the Empire's goals that we saw with Pershing and the Client in season 1? We started talking about that a little bit in the last episode, but there's a separation that begins in this season.
Where I don't.
So we start seeing that there's that. The Dark Troopers and using the cloning. We see Snoke's. Don't we even see some? No,
yeah, we see some of Snoke's clones,
like Snoke clones in the
Imperial base.
It's been so long since I've seen it.
Yeah, I do not remember that.
Yeah, when they when he goes back,
ship, right?
No, when he goes back to Navarro, the Imperial remnant base that's there is a cloning base, and there's logs from Pershing, and then you see in some tubes there's clones of Snoke.
Do we know it's? I don't remember if it was it confirmed to be Snoke?
You can see it, and
it looks just like Snoke.
It's clearly Snoke.
They're Snokes. They're like those types of creatures, which is bizarre, and we don't really even know what that means.
I think it's just part of Project Necromancer. Yeah. I think Project Necromancer was. Well, I mean, we go back to Rise of Skywalker. You see on the Sith homeworld or whatever, there are vats there that are full of Snoke clones. So I think that the Snoke clones were still part of Project Necromancer the whole time.
I didn't know if that was confirmed to be Snoke. I must have missed it.
I don't know if it's confirmed to be the Snoke.
No, but there are Snoke
I didn't know if it was
clones,
like that. Yeah,
which we know that there were multiple Snoke clones because of Rise of Skywalker.
Let me ask it a little differently then. Why do you think Gideon seems to become more dangerous when his ambitions become more clear?
So I think he becomes more focused. I mean, that was when he was most dangerous in season 1, was when he had just a driven goal. And if he focuses and is able to fully focus on that one thing, nothing distracting him, no obstacles in his way, he's just going to be like a bull. He'll just be raging to that point.
How do you feel like all this emphasis on cloning in this reflects a misunderstanding of how the Force works? Curious. So they're trying to pass on power from Grogu,
right?
High middle chlorian count, all of this kind of stuff. They're trying to pass that on genetically to clones, and eventually we know towards this host body for Emperor Palpatine, because they think that it seems like from an Imperial perspective and even a Sith perspective, then the Force is a genetic power that's transferred.
I don't think they're entirely wrong.
Well, I think that the Jedi think that too in the Phantom Menace, but when we get to Ahsoka, the first season of Ahsoka, right? We start to see that there's this different perspective because they're training. Ahsoka's training Sabine, and the droid, I can't remember what his name is, that's trained Huyang, who's trained all these Jedi for 1,000 years or whatever, says I've never seen a Padawan with a less aptitude for the Force than you, Sabine. With it, so there's this shifting, I think, with Ahsoka that's going on. Do you feel like that we're going to continue to see a difference in the way the Force is viewed between this being a genetic thing and being everyone, the original way that we viewed the Force from A New Hope, and it's in everything, it's in around us, everyone has it type of perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hope they start going down that path more. I think it was the whole midichlorian thing was a complaint when it was introduced, and I don't think there's really been a single Star Wars fan who you ask and they're like, yeah, I think that was a great change, right? I think most of us are fine with it. We tolerate it, but
I think that most of us accept that that's the direction that they went.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think it is kind of silly because it makes it a, well, who's your daddy sort of thing.
Right.
I mean, like they continued to undermine the idea of anyone can be strong in the Force when they made Rey a Palpatine. Right. Originally, she was just
A Palpatine clone.
Right. Right.
Right.
Well, it's an offspring of a Palpatine.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. She was just some nobody from Jakku who was strong in the Force.
Which is the power of The Last Jedi. We won't go there. Right.
Right. Now, Luke started off that way. Obviously, we find out why he's strong in the Force. He's the offspring of Anakin, and that's fine. That's central. But what started off as one of the most compelling parts of Rey was undercut by the, well, you got to come from a strong midichlorian genetic line, right? It's further confirmed in The Mandalorian when they're seeking Grogu because he has such a high M count to make the clones, and it clearly works. Snoke is strong in the Force. We see him do some pretty impressive things in The Last Jedi, right? So clearly that works, and I think I hope they move away from that. I forgot that they started to do that in Ahsoka, so that gives me hope. I just hope they continue to do that.
Yeah, it became an issue even to like when it was mentioned, Anakin had a high midichlorian count. After that, then it became a discussion. Well, if it's a genetic thing and it's biological, who is his dad? And then you had to come up with what that came in. And then, it was Palpatine was his dad. And it's just like, okay, we're jumping the shark a little bit here. Can he just be a nobody that just was prophesied to be the chosen one? It does have more effect if it's just anybody can be.
What do you mean Palpatine is his dad? Is Anakin's dad?
It was mentioned in a comic.
Implied. It's not. It's been.
Oh, you're talking about the Soul comic? Yeah, that wasn't ever really confirmed, and it wasn't even a.
No, I know, but there's the fact that that's even a discussion is the issue there.
But in that comic, he wasn't even shown to be his dad in the traditional sense, right? It was more of he influenced the Force in a way. So I don't even mind that because that's not a genetic thing at that point.
But isn't that exactly what we see Moff Gideon trying to do in a limited scale? I mean, he's not able to directly, using the Force, influence the midichlorians to give life.
Right.
Which is Darth Sidious.
But he is trying to use Grogu's but influence.
He's using the midichlorian within Grogu to try to replicate that, to do this. I think that's where I'm going with this. It feels like Gideon's trying to see the Force as something scientific.
Well, that's what Pershing was doing too.
Exactly. And then mission. I think that what we've got with what I'm hoping that they end up doing with the Force is making it return to the proper view of the Force is we all can experience that with it. So season 1, we've got that initial connection with obviously Grogu and Mando. Mm-hmm. We've got the connection with Cara. We got Grief. We've got all these relationships that begin to form with it. And season 2 starts to reveal the impact of those relationships and those connections. Mm-hmm. With that, Din is no longer being just influenced by the people in his life. He's being reshaped. He's being completely changed because of those people in his life. And then you have Bo-Katan entering in, which forces him to question everything. You've got Ahsoka that comes in.
Makes him change his view of the Jedi.
And forces him to try to understand things differently with that. And then Grogu, of course, as they deepen their connection, he's forcing him to feel something emotionally with that. And each relationship pulls him further away from that independence that we start with in season 1, that lone bounty hunter type approach. And what we get from him is something a lot richer, a lot more complex, a lot more human from this. And that's kind of the Din that seems to be carrying forward into this film that's coming out, The Mandalorian and Grogu. A Mando who is not alone in the galaxy anymore. He has this identity that is now formed in his relationship with that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
It's kind of an aside, but we were talking so much this episode about Din Djarin removing his helmet, and I think we kind of forgot the biggest moment of him doing that. I forgot he did it again. He did it. He does it
Yeah,
again.
we're going to talk about it for sure. But
okay.
No,
okay.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I think we glance over the fact that he the first time he did it this season, it was out of necessity, right, to complete the mission. And you could argue nobody really saw him. He was kind of turned his back to everyone. Nobody really saw him.
He was sitting at a table and everybody looked at him.
Right.
Everybody saw him.
No. He didn't take his helmet off for that, I don't think.
In the Imperial facility?
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I was mistaken. But then at the end, he does it as a choice because he cares for Grogu. It's not that nobody's in danger at this point. There's no.
It's not to save Grogu at all.
No, it's purely for connection at that point. And it's the Anakin trying to save Padme thing, but it doesn't end up really bad in the end.
How do you feel like Bo-Katan and Ahsoka challenged Din differently in this season?
I think that Bo-Katan challenged his beliefs and Ahsoka really challenged his purpose in a way. Bo-Katan, of course, challenged how he believed in the creed and all of that and the code, all of that stuff. But Ahsoka urged him to really explore why he does what he does and what is he doing. And I think that, with Jedis, well, even though Ahsoka's, not technically a Jedi, she still follows the light side, all that stuff. But she's
taken a Padawan by this time.
It's there's a lot of purpose behind what they do. And everything they do is pretty much a lesson. So when Ahsoka has him save a village from rule, it's like, hey, you can be doing more with your talents. You can be doing more with how you are. What is your purpose? I know that Grogu is your purpose right now, but your mission is to get him away from you. What are you going to do after that? And so it makes him really explore why he does what he does and what is he doing and how can that further become even more beneficial for him and just how he behaves.
How does that contrast with what Bo-Katan does by him interacting with her and really understanding that there's more to being a Mandalorian than just the strict adherence to the creed? What are the contrasting those?
I don't even know if there's a lot of contrast. I think they almost build on each other.
Okay.
Because, like Nathan says, Ahsoka shows Din, hey, you can be doing more. What are you going to do when you're not ferrying Grogu around? And then Bo-Katan comes around and is like, look, you're a Mandalorian. We may have differences in the way you go about it, but we're all Mandalorians here. And our people are scattered. We're going to fix that. We want to take back our world. You can be a part of this too. You can be a part of bringing all the Mandalorians together like you should as a Mandalorian. So I think it almost builds on that. It gives him a path to go towards. And then he does end up going down that path in season 3. So
Bo-Katan influences him by giving a wider perspective on his identity as a Mandalorian, right? And then Ahsoka gives him a wider perspective on what he can be as far as an impact
what he can
in
be
the
doing,
galaxy
right?
With it. What's Grogu's impact on Din Djarin in season 2?
I think it goes to maybe a little bit of just he is a purpose, and Grogu is a way for Din to just start having his walls broken down more and more. he's a device to be able to let him open himself up and have someone to care about, which he never really had before. Never had that in season 1. We know that he was just a loner. So having that thing to care about is how Grogu influences this season. A lot without talking. No talking.
Yeah, I think it shows Mando that there are things larger than himself that are worth fighting for, that are worth sacrificing for. In this season, it's his devotion to the Creed. For Grogu, he gives that up because it's the right thing to do. And then in this 3rd season, he's willing to sacrifice of himself for the greater good of Mandalorians everywhere, right? Taking back Mandalore. So I think Grogu, like you say, Grogu kind of shows him that he's got a connection to things that are bigger than him, that are worth fighting for.
Transformation always comes with a cost. And in season 1, that cost was kind of risking everything for, risking the covert, risking his livelihood as a bounty hunter, all of those things. In season 2, it comes down, and especially in that final episode, it's surrender. Mm-hmm. It's letting go of that. And those final moments between Din and Grogu in chapter 16 are really quiet. Mm-hmm. They're restrained. They feel almost fragile.
Yeah.
Within that, there's not a lot of explosions. There's no spectacle. It kind of ends.
Thankfully.
I mean, you get to Luke, and then you've got a lot of episode left, and they slow things way down with it, and it's matching a lot of emotional weight with the way that they do that, because it's the culmination of everything,
right?
In this season. And you talked about it. Din then chooses to remove his helmet, not because he has to save Grogu's life, not because he has to do it to save his own life like he did at the end of the season 1, right. But because he wants Grogu to see him for the first time, to know him, to remember him when he leaves. And then he lets him go. This is what it means to fully become who you choose to be in this. Not just someone who protects, but somebody who releases. Why is Din letting Grogu go a greater act of love than him rescuing him at the beginning of season 1? Or in the Sin episode in season 1?
Well, I think he's actually had time to form a bond. I mean, in the Sin, it's more of this innocent creature is going to be,
who knows what's going to happen,
right?
Yeah.
And that's just the wrong thing in general. Now this is a person. He knows his name. He's grown an attachment to him. So giving him up is even harder now. And he ultimately knows that this is the right thing for Grogu. And so he has to be selfless in this act.
Yeah, I agree. It is originally the choice for Mando was, I need to save this creature and then I'll figure out what to do with him after that. And now I have grown, like my identity has changed in the time that I have been with this child. I have grown with this child, and now I have to choose to let that part of me, that season of my life, that chapter to end, and have it leave so that I can grow without it. And then he gets him back in like 2 months, but
yeah,
still the fact remains he did let him go.
And that is one thing in a retrospective about the series. It does feel somewhat frustrating. Is every big sacrifice of a big moment is just undone. I mean, he takes his helmet off to show Grogu his face, right? And then within 2 episodes of season 3, he's back in good graces with the covert again. And I understand why they had to do it. It's fine, but it is somewhat frustrating in a way that there's never seems to be any permanent repercussions for anything yet.
Except for when Din dies and
Right.
Mandalorian and Grogu.
Well, I mean, and we've seen in the trailers for Mandalorian and Grogu, he gets a Razor Crest back, right? Which is exciting and it's cool and it makes sense. He needs it. But I do hope that soon we see some major ramifications from one of these major choices that Din makes, you know? I'm not trying to be like a negative Nelly.
No, I understand where you're coming from. It's a legitimate you know, it makes sense where you're coming from on that. I would say that I view all of these choices as not a straight line. And I think that's what I hear from you. I hear you kind of seeing, well, he takes off his helmet, he gets his helmet back on. He gives up Grogu, he gets Grogu back. He loses the Razor Crest, he gets another Razor Crest, right? And all of those things, you know, he gets kicked out of the Bounty Hunter Guild. He's back in the Bounty Hunters, good graces again. All of that. That's a lot more how life really works, though. And what we're going to see, I'm thinking, in The Mandalorian and Grogu, is we're going to see a version of the Mandalorian, of Mando, of Din Djarin, who isn't... He transcends those choices. He moves past it, meaning he realizes that the helmet isn't what defines him. Being a bounty hunter doesn't define him. He doesn't have, and what defines him is who Grogu will become. And all of this journey has required him to go through this in order for Grogu to become what Grogu will become with this. It reminds me of Yoda in The Last Jedi. They are, what is it, the line that he says to Luke about?
They grow... we are what they grow beyond.
Mm-hmm.
We are what they grow beyond. Yeah, like this idea of he's fighting this back and forth, and it feels like that. And I think that we're supposed to feel that back and forth because that's what he's feeling. He's like taking a step forward, taking a step back to try to, because he doesn't understand who he is. What he's going to become in The Mandalorian and Grogu is he's going to realize everything in his life is about Grogu. It isn't about the Creed and about restoring Mandalore and about the next bounty hunter opportunity. The next card out of the deck from Colonel Ward or whatever her name is in The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah. It's not about those things. It's really, truly about Grogu. And so once he fully accepts that everything is about Grogu for him, all of those other things are going to melt away.
Right.
So what happens after you make the choice that defines you? The Mandalorian season 2 gives us that answer. You don't stop growing. You don't stop evolving. Din Djarin chose Grogu in season 1, but in season 2, he learns what that choice truly means. That love isn't just protection, it's sacrifice, it's attention, it's letting go when holding on would be easier. And as we move toward The Mandalorian and Grogu, that truth becomes the foundation of everything still to come. The story isn't just about becoming something new. It's about continuing to evolve and grow even when it costs you. If you've been enjoying this journey with us, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. We're walking step by step toward The Mandalorian and Grogu this May. We'd love to have you join us and be with us for this entire journey.